Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Juliana if you've never been here before, and I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited that you guys are here as well. Don't forget to smash the like button. I think it's over here, or over here. And don't forget to subscribe. I post new videos every week. They're either going to be out on Fridays or Sundays, just depending on what's going on with me during the week. So let's get on to what we are going to talk about today. So today's videos are going to be centered around servers. So we're basically just going to be talking about what you need on a server level to kind of get the ball rolling into the next video, which will be about actually programming your own server. It's just going to be a simple server, but what we're going to cover today is going to lay down the groundwork for what you need to do or what you need to know in order to kind of understand what goes on with the server, so that way you can kind of write it in whatever language you choose. Please excuse my my voice throughout this video. If it starts cracking or if I start losing my voice, it's because my throat and sinuses are all clogged up due to the pollen in the air. Alright, so today's content is going to be centered around servers and programming servers in general. It's going to be a good primer for servers in general and kind of how they function within the different scopes of languages. These slides will give you a solid foundation for what you can research for any given language that you can use to write a server. Alright, so let's dive into what we are going to be talking about today. Keywords and topics to be discussed are going to be platforms and frameworks, which are the modern ways to write servers. We're also going to talk about HTTP, as well as routing and paths and APIs. The sub-content we're going to cover today are going to be HTTP requests and responses, as well as routing paths in relation to file systems, directories, and querying. And then APIs, we're going to cover RESTful, CRUD, and SOAP. Platforms and frameworks are the most modern way to write a server. They typically are platform independent. Some examples are Java, Python, and Node. These are typically broken up into three categories, which typically reference the type of programming language that they are written in. So there's object-oriented. The most common ones that are object-oriented are Java, C++, and C#. There's also Objective-C, but that's not going to be covered in this course for the most part. We also have scripting languages, which are Python, Ruby, and Rust. The reason why they're called scripting is because they typically can run without any prerequisites. You don't have to wrap it in some kind of braces, or there's not the scoping isn't quite defined, as well as the fact that the variables within the language are typically more global. We'll cover these topics way more in depth later on in these courses and these videos, but this one is just to give you a solid understanding of what's going on. And then we have procedural, which which can have scoping, but they don't typically have classes involving they don't typically have classes inherently. Node.js, which is JavaScript, is one of the types that typically isn't quite centered around object-oriented programming. Same with C, and then PSL will eventually be introduced as a procedural language in the future. Alright, so now we're at HTTP. HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. There are various protocols which the internet uses to communicate. HTTP is the most common one, and there's also HTTPS, which is the same thing plus secure. But we're just going to talk about simple HTTP. So HTTP has several different types of requests that can be processed. There are GET requests, put requests, post requests, patch requests, options requests, update requests, and delete requests. GET is what your browser typically uses to pull web content to your browser and loads it there. So that's typically what your browser is doing. It's sending a GET request through HTTP or HTTPS. This request is special because it does not allow you to send a body within the request. Next is a put request, which is typically called once per page load. These are idempotent, which is basically what that means. It means it can only run a certain number of times. Then we have post requests, which can run multiple times without like any parameters or limitations set to it per page load. Then we have patch, which is typically used for CRUD operations. I'm pretty sure they're also idempotent, as well as delete. Options are pre-flight mechanisms that aren't allowed to send bodies, as well, just like GET requests. The reason why they're called pre-flight is because they're sent before every request minus GET request to check to see if it can even send the request. Otherwise, it just fails the request before it can even send it. And then we have updates, which can happen multiple times on the same page load as well. And then we have deletes, like I said, is idempotent. Okay. Now we have responses. Responses have status codes. There are different levels of status codes. There's 200 level, 300 level, 400 level, and 500 levels. The 200 level typically means everything's okay. 300 levels typically means there's some form of redirection going on. 400 level means that there's an error that the user didn't account for. So user error. And then 500 level typically means your server is broken and you need to fix it. I think that's all I need to cover for those types of things. Again, this is just an introduction to it all. We'll cover this way more in depth later on. This is just to get your feet wet. All right, routing and paths. So, operating systems, or OS for short, are called file systems. They're synonymous. This means that everything on your computer is just a file that is referenced somewhere on your operating system. Quite redundant, I know, but this is the reality. So, given that we have things on our operating systems that are called directories, they are basically just folders on your file system. To reference a specific file, you typically need to know what folders or directories they are located. The location is known as the path. An example would be ~documents /file.txt. The tilde means it is referencing your home directory, which your file system or operating system already has predefined. This can be covered way more in depth later on during our operating systems course, but that's way in the future. Right now, we are just talking in terms of routing and paths. Next on the list, we have query. Paths can have additional parameters attached to them using search or query strings, which has a syntax pattern. Oops, there's a typo. Pattern, not patter. Pattern of question mark, which typically stands for query, and then a variable equals the content. And then we use an ampersand to add additional parameters or variables to our query string. An example would be get on the path cars with the query of we're looking for white cars with the color white and that were made in the year 2020. API stands for Application Program Interface. It is what like most websites use to pull up information that users request. There are different types of API structures, which are called design patterns. And the most commonly used are RESTful, CRUD, and SOAP. RESTful stands for Representational State Transfer. The most common protocols that are used with a RESTful type of request are get, put, post, and delete. It also supports JSON as well as XML and just data, form data. This will be covered way more in depth later on when we actually start building web applications. But this is just so you understand the information behind all of this. RESTful is I would say the most robust out of the rest of them that can handle the most workload. Next are CRUD operations, which stands for create, read, update, and delete. The most common protocols that are used are post, which is used to create, and then you have put and patch, which are used to update, and then get is what is used to read, and delete is what is used to delete. Okay, now we're going on to SOAP. SOAP is super ancient. It stands for Simple Object Access Protocol. A lot of really old software is use this type of application program interface. It purely supports XML. XML is an object style of data formatting. Some examples of places that use this are older banks. Older banks typically use SOAP style of API architecture. It's a pain to use, I'm not gonna lie. But if you choose to write your stuff using this syntax and this type of API architecture, I'm not going to dock you for it. It's kind of interesting, the formatting, because XML kind of looks like HTML. And XML was originally the first way that people kind of used to structure your data that is passed to the user. In order to load it onto the page. We will cover XML later on in the course, just not right now. But this is all just to give you a solid grasp of what's going on underneath the hood with servers in general. That concludes my presentation on my introduction to server programming. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and send me an email at hello@pumpkinspicelatte.org. Thank you guys for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Hi guys, my name is Juliana, and welcome back to my channel. Hi guys, my name is Juliana. If you've never been